Hi, I'm Phil Cass, and I get the opportunity to share with you a bit about the Physicians Leadership Academy, which is a program of the Columbus Medical Association. One of the things that we want to make very clear from the beginning is that the Physicians Leadership Academy, and I'll refer to it oftentimes as the PLA, makes the distinction between leadership and management very clearly. This is the Physicians Leadership Academy. It's not the Physicians Management Academy. And I say that because my experience has been that 90% of the time when people hire leaders, they're actually hiring managers. And the leader proportion of that's minimal. But what we're concerned about in this academy is leadership. And I say that because our definition of leadership is a bit different than you might find in textbooks. We define leadership as caring about something, making a decision to act on that caring about something, and then leading from that place of caring. One can manage a project, one can paint a house, and manage it without any sense of caring about that house. But once you enter caring into it, then leadership starts to step in. And so we're interested in helping physicians develop their capacity to understand what they care about, to understand how they can skillfully intervene, and then understand how to continue to act from that place. One of the many reasons that we offer meditation as part of the Physicians Leadership Academy is that meditation is really a kind of a radical act of self-caring, a necessary component to leadership. There's 4 components to caring. 1 is caring for yourself. 2 is allowing yourself to be cared for. 3 is caring for other people, which then creates the 4th capacity, being able to care for the bigger picture. And I say that because when I just said a minute ago that meditation is a radical act of self-care, it's a radical attempt at helping to develop an internal capacity to be able to care about something and carry it through and understand how to carry it through. So our Leadership Academy develops that capacity for self-care, which physicians aren't real good at. We also emphasize being willing to be taken care of, which physicians really aren't good at. Physicians automatically almost get caring for other people, but it's to the extreme of oftentimes not paying attention to themselves, which then fundamentally cuts off their capacity to lead. So that's a little bit of the fundamental structural background that we have to the Leadership Academy. So I'd like to now go into some of the more concrete pieces of the academy. 3 main components. As I said earlier, 1 is mindfulness meditation practice. We expect over the course of the 10 months with really excellent instruction, participants, fellows will develop a meditation practice over the 10 months. We have an enormously talented and wonderful meditation instructor. Every month you'll get meditation instruction so that you're not alone or developing this from a CD. You're going to get live coaching and teaching. This is around emotional intelligence. It's around social intelligence. It's that radical act of caring for yourself. The second big component is you get professional coaching. Each person will have the opportunity to have up to 10 sessions of coaching. Many physicians have never, ever experienced anything like that. So we have to teach people how to use coaching, and we will do that. Coaching is an expensive thing to acquire outside of this academy. So it's an opportunity to get professional coaching within the context of the cost of the program. And then the third thing is really cutting edge seminar topics. As I said earlier, it's one thing to care about something. It's another thing to have skill to be able to then follow up on that caring. And so we will be teaching some new mental models and thinking around leadership that develop some of the core competencies that we think are necessary. What makes the PLA different? We talk about it being aware, awake, and conscious of what you're doing, from how you set up meetings, how do you host meetings, to how you show up in various settings. There's a big emphasis on relationships. We have a fundamental belief that relationships actually are at the basis of everything. And people sometimes think that actually it's the system or the way things are organized that are the operative aspects of leadership. It's not. It's the relationships you have, and we'll focus on that. And then we're going to also practice. You know what practice means. You're going to practice meditation. you're going to practice how to host meetings. It's concrete in that regard as well. So where did the PLA come from? I often have asked that. I was here at the Columbus Medical Association for 16 and a half years. And for 16 and a half years, I observed physicians and got to know a lot about what makes them tick. We then also did 50 in-depth interviews, 2-hour interviews of physicians across the community. And it was through the observation and through the interviews that we started to understand that, 1, physicians were in pain. 2, physician voice was not in leadership capacities in many places across the community. And 3, we understood that physicians were probably the best advocates for patients that are around. And it was for that reason that we founded the Academy, to bring physician voice that was advocates for patients. And we wanted to make sure that we were building a program that had the capacity to also help physicians' own well-being. We had concern for physicians. We were inspired by physicians. And I say to people, and they kind of look at me when I say this, I don't think you can provide leadership to training to physicians if you don't really care about them as well. So I have on my slide the word love, and I don't use that word lightly. I believe that there's an element of needing to have that kind of depth of caring for physicians to be able to pull this off at a depth that has meaning to it. There's many leadership programs that are about 3 inches deep. But if you want the 3-foot deep program, then it requires the people who are leading it to have an understanding and a caring about physicians in this case that goes beyond just 3 inches deep. So the curriculum, 20 hours of meditation instruction over the course of the 10 months, up to 10 hours of personal coaching, and 76 hours of content. And those are the 3 components I talked about earlier. I want to run through the curriculum now a little bit so that you have a sense of what this curriculum looks like over the course of the 10 months. There's a retreat in October, and it's the formative retreat, and I'll go into more detail about that in a minute. And there's another retreat in April. Those go from Friday through Sunday. All the other sessions that we have are 3 to 8 in the evenings, once a month over the 10 months. Kind of the pattern of those 3 to 8 evenings is that 3 to 3:45 is continuing meditation instruction and support. Break, 4 o'clock, we will have content from 4 to 5:30. Typically then we have a really nice dinner, and then content again from 6 to 7:15. And then from 7:15 to 8, we wrap it up and kind of talk about what are the implications of this for my leadership practice. So the first event after the orientation for fellows in the program is a weekend training that's called the Art of Hosting Conversations That Matter. In that training, several things take place. 1, you will start to deepen your meditation practice. 2, the group becomes a community. By the time we're finished on Sunday, you will start to feel as though you're a community. And 3 is this training on the art of hosting conversations that matter. You'll note this isn't a training on how to hold better meetings, although that will be a byproduct of it. It is a training on how to actually host conversations that when you're finished with them have meaning for you and for the people that are there, which is the kind of conversation we want. Then in November, we do a session on, it's called the Art and Science of Becoming Aware of Ourselves, Others, and the World Around Us. And that's an immersion into meditation. That's where we want people by the end of November to feel some confidence that they know enough that they can actually start to have a meditation practice. December, we have a session on the introduction to organizational culture and culture change. That particular session is led by a woman who was at 39 years old, the Undersecretary of Defense under Caspar Weinberger, and she went on to head up what is now the VISTA program, at a different name under the Reagan administration. She comes in and does a session for you on how to create cultural change from sitting as a board member. She makes her living now on corporate boards. She's on the corporate board of the CSX Railroad, several banks, and she will talk to you about how to create culture change from the perspective of a board member. In January, we have a session on finance, but even here, we could have crafted this as simply a session on healthcare finance, and it would have looked like every other finance module that you would ever get in the leadership program. But we understand that money is connected to purpose, is connected to people's purpose. And so we will talk about personal finance as well as healthcare finance, but it will all be connected to money, purpose, and human beings, as opposed to just something that sits there by itself. Finance doesn't sit by itself. All that has an effect on people. In February, we do a session on managing in complex environments, an introduction to complexity theory. There are complex systems, there are complicated systems, there are simple systems, and then there are chaotic systems. Each of those have a different way to intervene in them to create change. Certainly healthcare is complex, if not chaotic. How you approach change in complex systems is completely different than how you think about change in simple systems or complicated systems. Unfortunately, 90% of the time, we use linear approaches to change in complex systems and wonder why they don't work. And you'll learn other methodologies for intervening in complex systems that do work. In March, we have a session on it, and it's called the Introduction to Design Thinking. We have a gentleman who has spent years at Hewlett-Packard and has developed skills in how to bring what manufacturing has known for years in design thinking into social systems. He'll talk with you about how to use that form of thinking in working with human beings and working with human systems. In April is the second retreat. It's a non-residential retreat. It is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it is, we call it the Presencing Retreat, an introduction to Theory U. There are people at MIT that I've been fortunate enough to work with who've been understanding and developing the capacity to bring more regularity to innovation. It's kind of a contradiction in terms, but we've come to understand that innovators actually do not take all their learning from what's happened in the past. They have the capacity to sense the future. And from that sensing, the innovation comes. I happen to be one of the people that is able to teach that. You'll learn how innovation is embodied. You'll learn how innovation is brought about. You'll learn about innovation from a systems perspective, but this will also be a personal retreat where you will actually have a chance to sense your future as a human being, not just as a physician. In May, we have a session on understanding and making sense of data and the power and influence to create change. So this particular session is on the use of data as a mechanism to back up advocacy for changing systems. One of the things physicians need to be able to do is to advocate for themselves, for patients, for the healthcare system, and there are skills to that. And we will teach you skills for advocacy and the use of data. And that's taught by, many of you know, Dr. Mernal Shaw and Malcolm Porter, who is the public affairs consultant for the Columbus Medical Association. And then finally in June, our final session is called the Mindful Physician. In this particular session, we bring in Dr. Roberto Benzo, who is a pulmonologist from Argentina at the Mayo Clinic. He founded the Institute for Mindful Breathing, NIH-funded program that is researching the impact of mindfulness on chronic pain and chronic illness. He'll talk about that, but he'll also talk about what does it mean to be a mindful physician. And then in June, we graduate. That's the 10 months. We're developing more alumni activities now because alumni are asking for an opportunity to reconnect and continue to learn. So we are planning yearly, probably 2 yearly sessions now. We're going to be offering a local meditation retreat once a year for alumni. And we just finished our second annual meditation retreat in Nova Scotia, which we're imagining continuing as well. We're excited about the program. The results we're getting with physicians and the testimonies we're getting from physicians are extraordinary. I've been lucky enough in my life to be involved in a lot of transformational projects, and this may be the most transformational project I've ever been involved with.